Today I want to talk about an article I read from Prairie Farmer. Blood, Vet, and Tears. The Winds of Change Blow to Vet Medicine. This article discusses the large animal shortage of veterinarians in Illinois, and I wanted to go into how the underlying issues and solutions proposed may affect everyone. They talk about a farmer who was having problems with the birthing of a cow, and that farmer needed the vet, but the closest one was 25 miles away, and the vet needed the animal to be hauled to his clinic. But the farmer couldn't haul as the cow was already down in the chute. The vet couldn't come out because they had limited staff and tight schedules to make ends meet. The article then summarizes how Illinois cattle crop has decreased over the years, meaning less need for large animal vets. Those large animal vets are forced to see small animals at the clinic to make ends meet, so the farmers try to learn to do the medical work themselves, which then furthers the problem of a lack of veterinarians because the farmers do that work themselves. The article also talks about how vet school applicants are not from rural regions and graduates are not going to the rural areas. Vets talk about how clinics are seeing a shift from large animal to small animal. A solution is discussed that bigger corporate companies could enter the field using technology to help with the problems of the shortages of large animal veterinarians. But that risks increasing prices more than producers can handle. The article finishes explaining how the farmer with the calving problem did their own C-section to save the cow. One thing that worries me a bit, while I do not know Illinois law, it is legal for an owner to perform surgical procedures on their animals in Kentucky. It is not for a neighbor. How many people are breaking the law helping a neighbor out in these situations? And why did that farmer have antibiotics? A vet coached this person through the proper surgery and proper administration of drugs, but how often are farmers improperly using antibiotics? I'm seeing much the same issue as was discussed in this article. My practice is being forced to small animal. Many people won't or can't haul their animals. Farmers do more on their own and then call me less, so I don't see the need to do anything but decrease my large animal services. For example, I'm carrying smaller bottles of cattle drugs because the larger ones expire before I can use them because people aren't calling me. But then when a cattle client does call, I may not have enough to treat multiple animals because of the smaller sized bottles. So then the cattle clients don't feel like they can call me because I may not have what they need. Or today, a client called and we told them we only see cattle of active clients. I see cows, but only 17 of my clients with cattle starting the 2024 year had active VCPRs. Some of those hadn't even let me see their cattle that year. They merely had brought a dog in. But I made this rule: if you aren't an active client or actively using me, I don't see your cows. I had someone call today in tears because we were the only one they could find that worked on cattle, and they needed their cow seen. Well, they hadn't used a vet in 14 years. The reason I'm not seeing cattle is because cattle clients may not call but once every 14 years. And I can't run a business like that. It's a self-fulfilled prophecy that we are running out of large animal vets. I'm Dr. Nathan, and you're listening to Vet Talk, the Veterinary Podcast. While you think about what I just discussed, I wanted to talk to you about what I have seen locally putting pressure, or at least not helping, large animal veterinarians. Around me, it's not a big private corporation. I haven't seen that issue in large animal medicine around here. But there are pressures from the biggest corporation I know, the government. In this case, being represented in multiple ways. I wanted to discuss how the government is affecting large animal vet medicine. The first thing I wanted to discuss is the local extension offices. If you aren't familiar with the extension offices, they are a non-credit educational network helping the community in rural areas. They may help youth or consumers or small business owners. I'm going to focus on how they help agricultural producers. I have some links in the script to articles explaining more in depth what the Extension Office is and how they are funded. This script will be on the Patreon. So, a basic Extension Office question. Who funds them? Basically, the Extension Office is funded by us, tax-paying citizens, so the Extension Offices work for the people, for the taxpayers. They try to provide services, grants, and loans that are helpful in educating and teaching people to be better at what they are doing. This helps people individually, but in the government's mind, a successful people helps the government by creating a better functioning society. So overall, it's a win for everyone. It's great they do this. This is an example of our tax dollars at work. Sometimes I think we often forget the positive sides of how our tax dollars help us because programs like this are so ingrained in the community, we forget this is actually a government organization that is working for us and has been working for us for a long time. Our tax dollars make the roads, and that's what gets us around every day. Our tax dollars also support Extension, which actively tries to help us succeed at our goals. Now, that may be the last positive I say about the Extension Office, but I want to stress that is in regard to the perspective I am taking with the current veterinary shortage. In general, I think they have done well for the community and the taxpayer. I want Extension supported. This is not an episode to talk down about the Extension offices, but to a small business owner like myself, I have gotten the impression that I am facing off against a giant corporation with limitless funds, i.e. our government. Extension is institutionalized across the country, and its primary goal is not trying to help the private practicing veterinarian. So it's one aspect of how I see the government affecting my work. Sadly, as a large animal veterinarian, I have not had the best luck at interacting with the Extension offices. When I started practicing, I reached out to the local Extension office to let them know I was available and see how I could work with them. Over the years, I found I had multiple issues. One egg agent, frankly, I couldn't work with, and I didn't trust to work with him. He became a client and asked me to do illegal things, and said he would do illegal things regardless of me working with him or not. He wanted me to write health certificates without Coggins. Please listen to my episode about Coggins to see how serious this is. When I refused, he said he would take the chance to travel without these papers and tests, putting other people's horses at risk for his pleasure. This was the person educating my community about how to manage their animals. Someone who told me he would break the law because he just didn't want to abide by it. It seemed rather dismal to me that this was a local leader in the industry. Another agent was notoriously hard to communicate with. It would be months before I received responses when reaching out. I think I did manage to get one lecture in at the local extension center, and they had me sit on an advisory board, but with such sporadic responses, I gave up eventually working with that agent. One county did have me come talk to producers once and a 4-H group of kids once. That was nice. Another county had me for about the same, where I did a lecture and we did a little work together. Another county agent, I had the impression the agent wanted to be the veterinarian and didn't have much use for me. And that's where my biggest issue came in. One of the things I was doing as a large animal veterinarian was encouraging clients to complete blood tests to determine if their cattle were pregnant. I did a big push where I started to educate clients on the benefits of knowing if their animal is pregnant. To make it easier on clients, I started to teach them to draw blood themselves so they could get blood tubes from me, draw blood, and I could then just send the test to the lab to confirm pregnancy. This reduced cost to producers but kept me in the management loop. I went through a few pricing schemes where I priced the test from $4 to $11 a test. In theory, the lower prices would work because I could see a bulk of animals and not charge much, but still make some money. But remember that self-fulfilling prophecy. Clients were only having me test 1 or 2 animals. So I had to increase prices because I wasn't getting a bulk of tests. What was the biggest thing keeping my test prices low? The local ag extension agent. They had found a grant where extension paid for pregnancy testing on animals. Cattle producers, and what I would have done this too, started using this free testing offered through extension. But they still had to get the blood drawn, so they would certainly need a vet. Oh wait, I had spent the last few years teaching them all to draw blood from their cows. So instead of calling me, they drew blood and took advantage of the grant money. I mean, why not? It's a way the farmers were getting some of their tax dollars back. But here I am, a tax-paying citizen, and I am giving my tax dollars to fund my competitor. I can't compete with free. Nor did I blame the extension office. Well, in a grand sense. I was upset, but they were doing their job. It's not like the test was run improperly. From what I understood, they sent the test to the same lab I did. But as far as a vet, it was another point of contact I lost with the producers. When I have less points of contact, it's less chances for me to discuss herd management and recommend proper vaccine protocols. And as we've discussed in other episodes, one less regular thing cattle producers need me for. They didn't need me for vaccines, which they could purchase at the feed stores, and they didn't need me for pregnancy tests. So what did they need me for? Emergencies in the middle of the night? As I have said many times, I didn't see my local ag agents officially going out and practicing medicine at midnight to save animals. They left that to the vet while they took annual work for themselves. And that's a harsh way of putting it, but I was pissed. Another instance in my community was local search and rescue or emergency management. I had someone come to see me once from this organization and ask if I would teach them how to better handle helping down large animals get up. I was a little confused by this conversation and started inquiring what was going on. One of my questions was who was funding them, and the representative informed me they were funded by tax dollars. I'm a taxpayer. From what I could gather, they had some equipment to help large animals that were down in a field, and they were going out to help these animals. They described a scenario they had recently gone out to. I asked if there were veterinarians involved, and they said one was supposed to come, according to the client, but never did. So the rescue people tried to help get this cow up. My suggestion was that this organization should be on call after a vet had done an initial exam and determined if help was needed. Otherwise, what I am sure clients were doing is not calling the vet and just calling for this group to come out to help get animals up. I mean, in theory, that sounds nice that the government is helping again. But from a veterinarian's perspective, there were 2 problems. 1, clients were skipping the veterinary step of confirming the cow could get up. If a vet informed the owner the cow had no chance of getting up, maybe our government organizations would not need to use time, effort, and tax dollars on that animal of a private citizen. 2, they skipped the knowledge the vet had to offer and a point of contact with the vet. The case I described above, I was pretty sure that cow was not going to get up. They needed a vet to check for diseases which could be in other animals. They needed a vet to say if it was worth trying to go through the effort of getting an animal up or if the animal was already too far gone. And yes, for you vets out there, the cow had been down for a while. And look, here is the point of contact of a veterinarian and the clients through emergencies, and it's being whittled away at. Now producers may not even need me for an emergency. I'm not saying that it's wrong of people wanting to help their animal, but here the government wanted advice on how to get animals up when I thought they should be getting advice on if they should go out to assist these animals. This educational meeting between myself and Search and Rescue never materialized. I asked them to send me specific questions they wanted answered, and I have not heard back from them since. But what I saw was cattle owners found a free way to try a last-ditch effort to get an animal up that did not involve a vet. This skips the veterinary side of things, which is valuable for herd work. Is that animal suffering from a disease that could affect other cows? Will medications allow it to get up easier? Can something be changed on the farm or with management of the farm to prevent more animals from going down in the future? These are questions a vet needs to answer, and these are questions that I do not feel were being asked. I wasn't sure as a taxpayer if I appreciated my tax money being used like that. If they went out to animals when a vet, not particularly me, but a vet said, hey, this animal has some hope and we need equipment and manpower to save its life, versus this animal that's been in the freezing mud and is hypothermic and near death. It's not going to make it. If we answer those questions, I would feel my tax dollars were being more appropriately spent. At least in a farm community where farmers would appreciate their neighbor being helped out in a situation they themselves would like to have help with. But consider this. Are we using our tax dollars to help private citizens effectively? Are these private citizens who need help during a bad day? Or are these people, through constantly not planning ahead, wasting tax dollars and the time of government officials? I attempted to get statistics for how often my local government went out to help large animals. Some government officials were very helpful and tried to help me, but most did not get much information to me. The county attorney really tried, but didn't have that information on hand. She said I would have to go through all the dispatch calls over the year, and we both agreed that was a lot of information combed through for what I assumed would be a few calls. I asked the person who wanted my help with the education event and heard no response. I figured he would know how many calls that his group went out to. I figured it would be a small number versus hundreds of animals, but I wanted to know for sure. The head of emergency management in my county responded to me that he would look into it, but never got back with me. I know last year that search and rescue went out on at least one call with the example they gave me. I could be wrong, but I think it's a low number. I don't think it happens a lot. I can only remember one other instance in my career where I was involved with emergency personnel and an official down large animal case. But remember, how many cattle clients do I have? 17. So let's say that 2 out of my 17 people use this service instead of me. That knocks me down to 15 cattle clients. I mean, if it was 2 out of 100, maybe that wouldn't matter. But again, I only have 17 active clients. This is a self-fulfilling prophecy. I felt the government is training people not to use veterinarians. To the best of my knowledge, this emergency service is free. The pregnancy tests are free. Farmers are one of the most subsidized groups of people in the country. I have a link to supporting that in the Patreon script. And that's not a bad thing. I'm not saying funding farmers is bad. As a country, we want and need our farmers to succeed. They feed us and are incredibly hardworking. But I have wondered, as I do with most government funding, is the government distributing funds appropriately? Is the money having the effects it needs to? I am biased. Veterinarians also get some of these subsidies, and when I get that money, I tend to say it's distributed well. When I don't receive such money, I have complained it's not distributed well. There are state and federal grants to help vets repay student loans, so that can entice vets to come into the profession of large animals. But when that money dries up, we still need a financial base from clients to allow a private business to function. As a matter of fact, we need that financial base while the money is out there, because the business side is separate from loan repayment, student loan repayment, which is what most of the money is. What do we not have that is keeping us from not controlling our businesses? Well, we don't have control of vaccinations in large animals. That's the feed stores. Feed stores also have a lot of the deworming products. And then we don't get to help with management of breeding. That's AI techs and extension offices. And now even emergencies of down animals are being taken away. The government or other private businesses besides veterinarians are doing all that. In some cases, because of the shortage of large animal veterinarians, I've heard of groups of farmers banding together to help in an emergency situation, which again is nice. Community coming together. But this means that if a vet gets a call, it's too late for the vets to do much. As much as I hear about a lack of large animal veterinarians, from what I'm seeing, large animal vets are not wanted. So then those of us who practice large animal medicine decrease in number. What was I saying about a self-fulfilling prophecy? I'm going to jump down a little rabbit hole here, but while I was writing this episode, a question was nagging my mind with the trends I am seeing. This country is divided about human government-funded healthcare. I always liked the idea. I'm just paying an increase in taxes for it, and then private insurance for more elective things or certain at-risk associated things. However, I know that's not for everyone, and I know the pushback that Obamacare received. So I don't think the country wants government-run health care for people. But are we leaning towards government-funded health care for cattle or food animals? It does seem that private practice is shifting away from large animal medicine, but we need large animal medicine to protect our food supply. The government does seem to be actively trying to fill the void with the examples I have discussed here. I mean, the government through the USDA manages the food from death of an animal to the store, and a little bit before, as vets are acting as agents of the government, but perhaps managing it earlier in a more direct sense makes sense too. And that may not be a death sentence for private practicing veterinarians. Maybe private practitioners can be contracted for specific times to do the large animal work for the government, thus spreading the burden of responsibilities. I'm not saying this is good or bad, but it's certainly different from the established norm. So maybe the government will have Obamacare? I mean, I know a lot of vets that like large animal medicine, but we can't afford to have it in our private practices. Maybe if there was a centralized care, the government could pay us a decent wage to do large animal work on our off days and provide us with the needed equipment. Since I am seeing the government in so much large animal work now, perhaps it won't be as opposed as human government health care has been. The last part I want to discuss is how Kentucky is planning on responding to the large animal vet shortage. The Kentucky state government is aware of the problem. They have formed committees to investigate the problem and come up with proposed solutions. In the Patreon, I have their document they have come out with December of 2023, and that document has their response plan. While some of the ideas were very helpful, I saw others as just the group not understanding the true problem. It's not a lack of large animal vets, it's a lack of fair use of large animal vets with the economics to support those vets. In the Patreon, I have the document with my notes on it if you want to see the running commentary. But for this podcast episode, I'm going to focus on a few specific issues here. First, they summarized the problem well. Of the more than 2,500 active veterinarian licensees, only approximately 1,600 identified with a Kentucky mailing address. Of those Kentucky practitioners, 39% were identified as 55 years or older, possibly within 10 years of retirement. The report also identified that fewer than 3% of Kentucky veterinarians who dedicated 70% or more of their time to large or food animal work. I'm interrupting here. I actually am probably not included in this because I don't have the clientele willing to work with me so that 70% or more of my services are large animal. In 2023, my large animal services dropped to 14%. It was this data that helped ignite the conversation surrounding the veterinary shortages. My impressions of the document is it seems to focus way too much on getting more vets. With my own practice, I feel like I can increase my large animal services. The problem is, people aren't bringing me their animals. So I didn't like the ideas where the government response wants to track potential young vets from a grade school level. First, I feel at a young age in school, you need the basics, not tracking a career when you haven't figured out what a pimple is yet. The group also wanted to teach vet students financial literacy. My clients need financial literacy too. Everyone needs financial literacy. This is not unique to vets. If my clients understand money, they can pay for my services. Anyway, I need to stay on course for this episode. So while vet schools and the state of Kentucky are trying to get more vets, my point is in private practice, we don't need them because people aren't paying or using us for large animal medicine. One of the actions the committee wants to take is forming cooperatives amongst farmers for shared veterinary services on a sustainable contract. Are we getting the farmers to do things like to haul to a clinic? I have been trying to get large animal clients to haul to my clinic for years, and they don't want to. And if they are hauling, where are they hauling to? The answer of this committee: often mixed practices require their food animal clients to haul in animals for veterinary services. As business models shift, it is important to consider new and innovative ways to offer a veterinarian enough business to sustain their community services. I think this could push experienced veterinarians out if not handled delicately. The committee mentioned a few places they want to build a haul-in facility. Those were not in northern Kentucky. So I guess my cattle clients, not even the government cares about. But my point with this article, it sounds like the government would build a haul-in facility. How are they going to financially convince me as a cattle practitioner to leave my lucrative small animal clinic? And then how are they going to get clients to haul in? Clients have told me they don't want to pay the rates I am imagining would be required for this, and they are telling me they will not haul their animals to a central facility. In one scenario, I would imagine these facilities would likely be available to any veterinarian. If they are, why would I continue my cattle services? I have worked hard and burned the midnight oil, or the midnight placental juice in the case of calving cases, for years and bought and paid for the equipment and facilities I have to work on large animals. If the government gives this to new vets, I would take my experience that these new vets lack and say, figure it out yourselves. If they are given all the stuff I had to buy, I will go where I can make more money, which is small animals. And maybe I speak too harshly. That's the business owner side of me. The vet side is like, if they offer me good enough money, I could do cattle work at a nice facility and still run my small animal clinic if the duties of this cattle place are shared with vets across the state. So I'm not opposed to what they are proposing as long as it is handled delicately. But it could hurt the already hurting large animal private practices out there. Well, it would end it. I could see myself working for the government cattle practice, but I couldn't see continuing my cattle practice, which, albeit, is dying anyway. Is that selfish of me when there is a national problem? Perhaps, but the sacrifices I have made to allow my community to have access to veterinary services seem to be ignored in how I am understanding this scenario play out. How can I compete with free? How can I compete with my own tax dollars funding the government? Not that I think clients will haul to these potential facilities, but if they did, how can my private small business compete with free blood work, free advice, and now free facilities? That is stuff I would have to buy with funds from my small animal side, and at this point, as one of the most seasoned large animal practitioners in northern Kentucky, I'd just take my small animal profits and give myself a raise instead of continuing to invest in something I have lost control over. On a side note, I have noticed a subset of clients that will haul their large animals, but they feel if they hook up their trailer, they will just go to a larger hospital. I'm talking horses here, not cattle. I'm close enough to Lexington that horse owners will bypass local vets to go down to Lexington for perceived prestige and value of services. So I want to mention this as an amendment. Some people are willing to haul, but they are helping the big hospitals, while local vets are seeing a lack of need of their services. Horses, while they are large animals, I doubt would be considered in the proposal to help the cattle services. However, in my vet hospital, horse trends seem to be a few years behind cattle, so I just want to put that out for thought and discussion. So yeah, as a private business owner on the front line of large animal medicine, these solutions are frustrating me. Do I think they are all bad? No. There could be benefits to cooperatives if handled well. I might like to get paid to go to work a day or a week and share duties with other vets. My clinic is at the point where I could hire a vet to see my patients while I was doing the large animal work. But not every practitioner is, so that would push them out of large animal medicine. Maybe equipment could be easily and fairly distributed to veterinarians already working in private industry. There are ways this could work. The money could go to clinics that are actively serving large animals. Let this money build facilities at vet offices which are already seeing large animals and give the vets a stipend to hire more vets to do or be on call for large animal work. That way those vets could make money seeing small animals, but then large animals that haul to the office would take priority for the vets hired with that salary. I think that would help the current large animal practitioners more than building a facility which may take business away from them. Again, to close this episode, I'm not saying any of these groups proposing ideas are not admirably trying to address and fix the problem. I'm glad it's being looked at, and I like some of the ideas coming out. But from a person on the front lines of veterinary medicine, I'm seeing a lot of this help as competition that instead of helping me is forcing me away from large animal medicine. Maybe that's where large animal medicine is headed. Instead of food production animals being focused on private practice vets, it will be run through multiple government-funded agencies. Maybe this would merge well with USDA agents, allowing better safety for our nation's food supply, from birth to table versus from death to table. I don't know where this will go. What I want to point out is while a lot of people are trying to help, and their ideas aren't bad, those ideas are affecting private large animal practitioners. There is going to be and has to be a transformation of the large animal veterinary industry. But we have to be aware this transformation may not have the expected outcomes. So I think we just have to consider what we want. Are we trying to help private practitioners, or are we wanting Obama cow care? Both have benefits and both have downsides for both producers and veterinarians. I'm Dr. Nathan. Thanks for listening. I hope our discussions are valuable to you and aid in giving perspective. If you want to contact us, please reach out to theveterinarianpodcast@gmail.com. You can find a complete list of the podcast episodes on SoundCloud. If you find this information helpful and want more content, please join our Patreon, patreon.com/theveterinarypodcast. And don't forget to follow our Facebook page, facebook.com/theveterinarypodcast. As always, thanks for listening, and I hope this information is helpful to you. If you do find it helpful, please like it, share it, so other people may find it helpful as well.